nobody like this. You ain't seen nobody like this. You hear my sound all over town singing. Whoa. You ain't seen nobody like this. You ain't seen nobody like this. You hear my sound all over town singing. Whoa. I think there's something in the water. If you wanna take a sip, but be careful what you wish for. The faint of heart can't handle it. Everybody wants a piece of someone else's prize, but it ain't free, it don't come cheap. Only the strongest will survive. You ain't seen nobody like this.
Good evening and welcome to San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. My name is Harry. I'll be the host tonight here. Joining us is Rafa. How are you? I see you're already rocking the Puma gear.
Got some better.
Nice.
It might be a better verde color than the mint green.
Awesome.
That's I was gonna say that's enough. You don't have to mention any further. We get it. We get it. You know a Spanish word. Okay. Austin knows a Spanish
There's
word.
actually more creativity on Rafa's shirt than their kits is, but
not wrong.
There. Royce, how are you? How was your trip down to the beach?
I know. I just got back from Corpus 15 minutes ago, and I obviously wore a hat all weekend, and I'm still in my fishing shirt. I didn't get skunked, but I didn't get skunked. We'll just roll with that.
And then joining us, John from USL Tactics, who has a lot of fans in San Antonio.
Yeah, so happy to be here, even though I've got a little bit of heat for being skeptical at one point about this team.
It's all good here. And like I said here, if you have questions, if you want to hop into the chat, like I said here, please do. Like I said here, we're more than happy to be able to answer those here with John as we go over and I get a better understanding of why GAR is so important for that here. So for us non-analytics guys, this will be education and more of a hey, what do I see on the pitch type of guy here, but should be a fun show. We'll get started with the action on the field, which is they lost 6-0 to FC Dallas, and they beat Houston Dynamo 2-1 today. That last goal that they gave up, from my understanding, there were 5 or 6 academy players on very late in the match, and the Houston Dynamo 2 got a late goal, but 2 goals by Patino at the start, one at the start of the first half, one at the start of the second half, and that was pretty much all she wrote. But we'll start out with Royce was able to get some inside information from Third Degree Podcast, which covers FC Dallas and is a great podcast. Even if you're a non-Dallas fan here, they do very quality work, and obviously it's heavy towards FC Dallas, but they've got a great team behind them here. But Royce was able to kind of chit chat with them while I was attending to AJ's soccer travels to Austin for this month. I think we got 6 trips up and back from Austin scheduled for his club games here. So first of all, we'll start with you, Rafa. Any thoughts on the preseason results? Does it matter?
I think what matters more is the building chemistry. I think that's integrating the new guys into the system. It's great to have a lot of returning players back, so the learning curve is not going to be too long. It's just what Marcino needs to find who's going to be your starting 11 come March 12th against Detroit, and then also who's going to be your role players, coming subbing in and out. So, and then who's going to be the keeper? That's the main thing, since we got 3 quality keepers. So, but that's a good problem to have, I guess you can say. But overall, like I mentioned, it's all about building chemistry and see what works and what doesn't work.
Bryce, any thoughts on? I have one that I'm going to point out to you if you don't catch it here. But any thoughts on the matches or lineups that came out?
As far as the Dallas match, just real quick to try to review it. The first lineup for the first half was the
Black.
the black, and the second half was the red. The big difference, obviously, being that there were two midfielders, and they went with a typical 3-4-3. The Marcina 3-4-3. We've seen it before plenty of times. In the beginning, in the first half, and from the pictures and from Buzz from Third Degree's description, we had a pretty high line. The center backs were pretty far forward, and it looked like they really tried to get away with a really high press, and they just kind of got burnt for it. And for a couple reasons, it doesn't matter that much. It's good to get in that mindset. It's good to get in that mode. But at the same rate, FC Dallas's season opener is in a week?
Next weekend, yeah.
And SAFC, that was their first preseason match. They'd only played together for a little over a week because there was that weekend, or that week they lost a few practice days because it literally froze for 2 or 3 days. So I'm not putting that much into this preseason match. This was, this is the system. Let's get used to it. Let's figure out the issues. And there were some issues, but also this FC Dallas, their attacking line's incredible. They have some really top players. Remember last time they played each other, Ryan Hollingshead looked like FC Dallas's best player, and while he's a good player, he's not their best player, but he played the best for them the last time SAFC played them. This time it was kind of an all-around effort, and everybody looked good on FC Dallas. For the second half, for the first half, obviously Bonilla started in that, Farr got the second, and then Cardone came in. We'll see where that ends up. That even with today's match, they're obviously all trying to get equal time to see who's going to get that starting point. The interesting point, though, in the formation that changed from the first half to the second half is we did bring one of those forwards back and to help out in midfield, because it's pretty obvious we were getting overrun in midfield. And that would be Loera, who's playing as a 10. He's playing in that Nathan spot. So it seems like Loera is taking over that Nathan spot, and it seemed like he played there as well today.
He had an assist on a goal as well, as my understanding for the second goal.
Right. That second goal went Loera to Beckford to Patino, and it went from Loera in the midfield as a 10, where the Nathan spot, to Beckford on the left, and then cross to Patino, who finished it. There was a video of the goal, so that's how they finished that.
So one thing that, and I know you caught this originally, unannounced, unannounced non-trialist, number 15, was it Didi Traore?
Didi Traore, yeah. We haven't heard an official. Yeah, we signed him. Here's obviously we're not going to hear anything about the contract. Everything is it's Spurs. It's very Spurs sports entertainment. But
he started today too.
Yeah, he did. On the left side, I'm sure again, as he is a left wing back. Still no word. They've listed his name twice, but they've never said, yeah, we signed him, which is interesting because on Transfermarkt, it shows that he's on loan to a French second division team.
That's the thing. Yes, that's the thing that has me is,
and they just signed him like in November is what it shows. Shrug. I don't know, man. No idea. I don't know if it's a loan. I don't know if it's a signing. Haven't heard anything. And I will say, I will go ahead and say that there was a big transition from Preston Petrie to now Kevin Bass, who is the social media and the communications manager at San Antonio FC. So that might be a reason for it, is there is that transition going on right now. And welcome, Kevin. We're looking forward to really annoying you. But that I think that's part of the reason is they'll get around to it. And I'm sure there's other signings. There were some unfamiliar faces that in some photos that they've posted recently. So I guess we may find out who they were. So
this is the lineup that came out initially at the start here. Bonilla was initially scheduled, but he was replaced by Farr, although Bonilla came in later in the match. But it seems like mainly Garcia, Tainter, Gomez, and Didi is going to be the back five. It seems like that they're really pushing that back five there. PC was in the midfield with the trial assist game was with Abu.
Yeah, PC's next to Abu, and I think that's going to be that's what I said in the beginning. It's going to be PC and Abu as a double pivot in the midfield. I think that's how it's going to be, and you have all of that speed and with Traore, and that's going to allow him to go as forward as much as he wants, and PC can come and slot.
Well, Gomez is supposed to be pretty quick as well, too, though, right?
No, he is. Gomez is on the right. That's correct. Okay. Gomez is on the right, so he's going to stay home a lot more. But Traore is going to get up a lot more because PC can slot over and take over. And you could still have Abu in the midfield, and you'll still have a good back four for cover, and you'll have Traore able to get up and down as much as he can. Because from what I've heard, that guy's fast. And obviously from what we've heard about Taintor, Gomez is also fast. So it's pretty exciting wing backs there that we have lining up that kind of out of the blue, to be honest with you. But
they're two playmakers with PC and Abu to really kind of distribute the ball a lot better kind of than we had last year. Since we did have PC out wide, I think having him in the middle, I think he's more effective there because he reads more of the defenses. And then plus those two can stop counterattacks, especially there in the middle. So I think
especially with PC's yellow card accumulation. Cheers, PC. I will also say that this is a really good cover for PC. If you remember last season, he had that groin issue. This is really going to help cover him for not having him run all up and down. He could just stay in the middle, so that should help that situation as well.
So my only question comes into up top is this a more defensive lineup? You know, because it just seems like to me, you know, you have Patino, Collier, Beckford, you know, if we're going with, you know, the last week starting compared to where did this one go here?
Right. So just going with what you're saying, I think we are kind of lining up to be more of a not a bunker and counter, but more of a press and keep a line and then just go with the counter. I do think that is what we're lining up to be. That's kind of what we did last season to a point. And that's how we afforded, and that's kind of how the Marcina system's been. That's how we afforded space for Pirana to dribble into. That's how we afforded space for Epps, for Gallegos. That's how we afford that space. We don't, we're not just spread out and trying to play, tiki-taka the entire time. We are kind of back. We have a double pivot. We have two very strong midfielders. That's very defensive. We have three in the back. That's very defensive. And you have wing backs. But at the same time, that's kind of what Chelsea did to Manchester City in the Champions League final last season. It's pretty much the exact same formation they played, and they played it to perfection. And that's how they won the Champions League over Manchester City, is basically this exact formation with a very similar tactical scheme.
So if you're to bring, and this is how they came out here, Collier, Dillon, Patino up top, and then obviously subbed, at half, somebody came in because obviously Lorera, got the assist. So who do you think's coming out? And we haven't. I'm not going to be able to go to Saturday's game because AJ's will be up in Austin again.
Right.
Who do you think comes out? As far as if they need more offense, obviously it seems like Lorera's off the bench, but then Beckford did, right. Started the first game, didn't start this one here. I was a little surprised that they had Collier, Dillon, and Patino. You think that's just getting minutes, or you think this is a possible precursor?
This is preseason. It's all about seeing how players. I mean, you had each goalkeeper get 30 minutes in pretty much every game that they've played, every preseason game they've played so far. It's all about seeing who gels where, and seeing who looks good. That's it. And to answer your question, who came off? I don't know. I'll tell you Saturday.
We don't know.
I don't know. We'll find out.
So the only other SAFC news that we had here is, and if you haven't checked out, SAFC came out this week with their new website here. It's
Pretty good.
a lot more user friendly.
Pretty
and to
good.
be fair, it wasn't just a SAFC. I think all USL Championship teams switched the platform here, but I like the SAFC one here. But they signed forward
Kakuta Mane. Yeah.
Kakuta Mane.
Which I'll tell you a little background on Kakuta. A few years ago, he was going to be a U.S. men's national team attacking option, to the point where when he was playing for the Vancouver Whitecaps, he maintained residence in the United States, and he would commute to Vancouver, British Columbia, which is like a 30-minute to an hour drive each way, in order for him to try to get that time, because you have to live in the United States for so long to take your citizenship. That's the length he went, and that's where the USMNT was talking to him about. Yeah, come in, we'll get your citizenship, and we'll bring you in, and we'll see. And that's exactly what he did. So last season he did play for Austin FC. Austin FC was just kind of a mess last season. Well, they're just a mess in general, but when he got his chances, he looked good. He took a couple of those chances, but for some reason they just kept. I don't know if it was a panic move, or I did not try to pay attention too much to them for obvious reasons, but they really rotated their forward core a lot to where nobody could really get a good foothold into what was going on. And that kind of is exactly how their season went. But moving on from that, Kakuta Mane, a very exciting signing. He is an MLS quality forward.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been an MLS quality forward for a few years. He's not, an aged out guy. He is still in his prime years of playing. He is still super fast, and he is very much a very exciting attacker that has U.S. national team minutes.
Yeah, he's got over 200 caps between league and international play, even some Liga MX with Pachuca. Rafa, your thoughts on him?
It's just another quality forward that we need, especially the fiasco we had last year when two of our players were hurt, and we were kind of scrambling. That's when we brought in Perusa. So we're bringing in early insurance policies just in case Patino, Dylan go down, and like I said, we have two quality backups with Collier, and I don't want to butcher his name. How do you pronounce his last?
Kakuta Mane. You have Mane. Yeah, you have Mane. We have Beckford, Loera, Collier, Patino, Dylan. A lot of attackers in there.
We're solid there now because, like I said, last year that was a little problem. But out of that problem, that's how Nathan rose to the occasion and took advantage of it. But I have faith in these guys, especially since they have the experience. So if we lose one, the next one will come up and take care of business.
Yep.
I like that he's wearing the 7 because we've had a couple of pretty good 7s in our history with Forbes and what's the guy that came from Cincinnati?
Cincinnati. Dorenzo was 7.
Dorenzo, but the guy that came from Cincinnati.
Is he going to wear the Dorenzo shorts? That's a very, very important question. Will Kakuta Mane wear the 3-inch inseam shorts? We'll see.
Well, so that brings the question: who's going to have shorter shorts, him
or Fabian
or Garcia?
Fabian Garcia. I'm excited to find out Saturday. Let's go. Who is sponsored by Nair? Let's go.
Goal for that game.
All right, so then we're going to bring on John here.
John is like, what is going on here?
The other big news that they came out with was the kits, the away kits and alternative kits. I think there was a little bit confusion. But in the email, and this is by the SAFC communications team and Kevin Bass, did mention that these will be the away jerseys and was it Viva Nights
Correct.
for that here. So we'll start with you, John, just because give you something to talk about here. Your thoughts on the kits?
Yeah, I mean, they're clean. I like the look. They didn't put their foot in it in any way here. Like, you feel like it represents the brand well. I like the chevron, the whole, like, my association with it is those throwback Spurs colors. Obviously, that makes sense with the ownership. Is it the most exciting kit you're ever going to see? No, but I would wear it.
We'll go next to you, Mr. Puma, Rafa, because you were teasing us with the plain white T-shirt look. So to be honest with you, I had that expectation. Hey, we're getting a white shirt with scribbles across it, and I think they did all right.
Like I mean, it's okay. It's an okay away jersey. I guess your home jersey is supposed to be your flashy jersey. So you're away, you're not trying to go overboard, unless you really want to make a statement. But it's a nice for the touch. It looks like those Spurs home white Fiesta jerseys. It kind of exact mirror of that. So I think it's a cool jersey. Even though there were some I read comments on Instagram. Some weren't liking it. One mentioned about like a 7-year-old can paint better than this or something. But like I said, I'm not too big of a fan with the Pumas jerseys because they're a little too tight. But hey, like I said, we got to go deal with it.
We got to go. We got to go start counting those sit-ups here so we can look like Royce here. So, Royce, your thoughts? Did we lose you, Royce? Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Royce, any thoughts?
I guess I'll move on to how I feel about him. I think Rafa hit it exact. It is supposed to be a very company centric. This is what the Spurs Fiesta jerseys look like. This is what SAFC's jerseys look like, and there's company synergy, and that's great. I think they look awesome. I mean, last year there was a vertical stripe. It looked great. It was perfect. It was simple. It was perfect. This is what this is. This is simple, and it looks really good, and it gets the job done. I'm happy that it's the away kit. I love the back. I think the back is
the back is the star to me.
But it's I love the vertical stripe they have. And it also means that we have a home kit to look forward to a release, as well as a third.
So, do we want to discuss rumors on that here, Royce, of possible rumors? I know Robert says wait till Jasir signs. I've got. It hasn't been announced, but I do know that Ollie Wright obviously is not coming back to San Antonio. I have heard rumors from sources. We'll say that are familiar both down in RGV and have connections with Ollie Wright at his local school. That he is going to be heading south to RGV. For that here, so it sucks that he isn't here with us, but I'm glad that he's getting the opportunity, even if it's with RGV. It hasn't been announced yet. I'm assuming they're going to have to start announcing people soon, so that way John can start filling in some roster spots for them. Rafa, any thoughts on Ollie moving down to RGV and what that does for him?
Well, hopefully it leads to him to get more playing time. I think here in our situation, we just had too much of a logjam in the midfield. But also, I think what kind of maybe hurt his opportunities maybe to come back is some of the mistakes he made. Everybody makes mistakes, but there were kind of key mistakes that kind of swung games left and right. And I think he kind of fell out a little favor from that. But I mean, he was an integral part as far as pumping up the team. He was always there greeting the fans. That's the type of player you want to have on your bench. Mm-hmm. I think hopefully maybe this going down there that RGV gives him an opportunity to really get some playing time, and then maybe he can improve on that, and hopefully, like I said, move forward. Maybe hopefully get into the MLS. But so just wish him luck. Well, when he plays against us, that's a whole different story. But I'll wish him luck against down there in RGV.
Yeah, for the other matches, like I said here, wish him Mike. Like I said here, I think that year 2 would have been an SAFC option for that here, and it sounds like unfortunately they did not.
May have declined.
They declined that option here. But to me, I think depending on what RGV is bringing in, and I've talked to Edson, they do have players. They did play a preseason match, even though they haven't announced a preseason schedule. I think RGV is on the MLS Next Pro schedule release program for that here.
Wow. They're on the New York Cosmos schedule. Yeah.
At least, the Cosmos, at least, aren't playing, but,
Do you?
Sorry, John.
Anyway.
The other rumor, if you follow Instagram, we'll let Royce introduce this one here, possibly his favorite Tunisian.
We have definitely seen some smoke coming from the Jasser Kamiri to San Antonio FC camp. We'll see if there's fire, but yeah, there has definitely been some posts that are very exciting, and that would make me feel just complete about the offseason, to be honest. Him in the middle with either Manley or Garcia to the right and Taintor to the left. Man, that is a heck of a USL Championship backline, plus how fast our wingbacks are. You got the double pivot in the midfield, and then you just have the attacking talent of Kukute Mane, Patino, Dylan, Beckford. Good
Diop.
Lord. Yeah. What? Yeah. Diop coming in as depth everywhere, literally everywhere. The dude can play incredible. Then Loera is in the Nathan spot. We'll see where John has us power ranked, but I have us at the top. Back to you, Harry.
So the roster sets at, I think, 17, 18. So we got 5.
Yeah. It's at 18, plus you're going to have some academy kids, including Roman Holt, who's gotten some minutes. And then I'm sure there'll be a couple other players, as is per usual. I don't think they'll be the usual suspects, just because, maybe later in the summer, but you definitely have guys like, I believe, Lincoln, Rocky Perez. Those guys are all in college. So they'll at least finish out the semester at their colleges, and then they may sign, an academy deal with the team to get some minutes over the summer, or some training at least, or minutes in the U.S. Open Cup, or however they end up.
Historically, SAFC runs about 22, 23 on the
up to 25 if there's injury concerns. Yeah,
right.
But yeah, typically season, 22 or 23.
23, and then they'll have their 5 academy.
Mm-hmm.
They may not. Last year they didn't announce all 5. I think they did 3 or 4, and then announced 1 later on in the year. So you can, but those don't count against the 30-man max roster spots that you can have. So that
one that was signed later in the year was after the Mexico games. Brad Dildy had a very good show out. He's also in college. So there you go.
So we're going to get to the Robert Rankin part of the show here, where he mentioned that he only wants to hear nice things about SAFC from John tonight. And sorry, Robert, we did say John gets to be no filter, stick to his guns type thing here. So if you're not familiar with USL Tactics, number 1, you're probably not listening to the show. Number 2, like I said here,
fix your life.
But yeah, he's one of the must follows of USL Championship for that, especially if you're into analytics. for an eyeball vision like me, a lot of times what he puts out there, I'm like, that's nice. I read it. I don't fully understand it. So we're going to start off with what I have here. And I think this is what started the conversation here, was his GAR per player that he put out, and it's been updated here. But as you can see, he only has San Antonio below Memphis, below FC Tulsa, through here. So this will be Royce's and John's section here, and Rafa's. Talk to me about what GAR is and how it is such a good indicator on how you bring up your analytics.
Sure. So basically, you're taking, for every single player in the league, the expected goals and assists they're putting up, which I calculate on my own using the shots, the passes, etc. that they're making. So everything they're doing on the offensive end, then combine that with the defensive actions that they're putting in, your tackles, your blocks, your clearances. And so that numerically captures the actual participation in the game. Then you've got the component of the GAR stat that is comparing the team's basically goal difference when a player is on the pitch versus when they're off it. So that tries to capture the intangibles. Obviously, you can't say you're a very intelligent defensive midfielder who is always in the right spots and no one passes in your vicinity. Hopefully that shows up in that sort of plus minus area. So you take those two factors, mix that together with some math, weight it by position because there is some pretty good variation of position. And for every single player in the league, that tries to show over the course of a given USL season, how many extra points are they earning their team throughout the course of the year. So
Or
if
negative
you weight that
points,
out,
right?
or negative points. Yeah. RGV at one point was negative in total. But if you just look at that for San Antonio, it puts them a little bit above average, basically mid-table, but in the thick of it in terms of that Western playoff race.
So this is basically the like a soccer equivalent of like a almost a wins above replacement in baseball.
Right.
Which there's also runs above replacement, but that is that's more niche. Hockey has a similar thing called Corsi. Corsi is kind of basically the thought behind Corsi is the more shots you have, the more goals you're probably going to score. The more hits you put on somebody, that means you don't have the puck, the less goals you're going to score. So hits aren't good in Corsi, shots are. And the same thing here, obviously shots, chances created, tackles, interceptions, and stuff like that all goes towards this, which is a good tactic for sure, or a good stat for sure. But we'll see how the season goes. Obviously, the preseason, and I think that's going to be the big thing. I understand SAFC lost some of the top players in the USL Championship, but at the same time, nobody kind of knew that they were top players in the USL Championship in the preseason of last year. Nathan kind of came out of nowhere from Brazil as a 20-year-old. Nobody really rated him, and guess what? One of the top goal scorers in the league. Same thing with Epps. It didn't seem like there was a long line to sign Epps. We brought him in from the Sounders Academy, and lo and behold, look at that guy on fire, and Phoenix decides to do what Phoenix does and threw money at him after SAFC showed him out. So, and then Gallegos, obviously, that's a big lot. That is a big loss for San Antonio, but his career is so much bigger than San Antonio FC, and it's exciting to see him play this weekend. I'm guessing we're going to get to that. I'm going to leave that alone because Harry's pointing at me like, yeah.
Well, no, I have a question on that.
Okay.
So, and this is the difference between analytics and the My Vision guy, which I'll put it as me, the average fan. So, to me, Jose, he was homegrown, San Antonio born, all of that, star with Central Catholic and along those lines. But when you look at his numbers, they weren't eye-popping off the chart. Like he never led in goals, he never led in assists along those lines here. So to me, from me, I don't think it's going to be that difficult to replace what his production was. Just
Funny.
And that's why I'm asking this question.
Okay, fair.
So for me, that looks at, hey, I see his goals, I see his assists. I know he can dribble. That was one of his best things, was being able to dribble and attack on that. How does that impact his, his GAR and stuff like that from an analytics side here? Because obviously John weights it very high, and you obviously weight it very high as well.
Rafa, you go first. Yeah, Rafa, you go first, and then John.
Yeah, get in there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it had to do because it was, the little things he did, especially, just the possession of the ball, his attacks, just creation of space, because he did cause a lot of chaos when he had the ball. Or he would get surrounded by 2 or 3 guys, and I think that's hopefully like Lorea does the same thing. If he can create the same thing, then I think we'll be fine. But if he doesn't do that, then we're like, okay, we're a little trouble here, because he really brought. Not that he scored a bunch of goals, he just brought a lot of attention whenever he had the ball. And I think one game was, the New Mexico game at New Mexico. The commentators were like, just every time he got the ball, they were all scared. Oh, well, he's got this. And, we had like Ronaldo. I mean,
yeah,
there, but he just brought a lot of things on there on the pitch that maybe statistic-wise wasn't on there as far as goals and assists, but just possession of the ball or creating space for our other players. You can notice that he did bring a lot of attention for that. And I think we're going to see this year whoever we put in the spot is going to do the same thing. And if they can do the same thing, we're going to be fine.
John?
Yeah, so just to push back on the statistical side of things, he was in the 97th percentile for player performance last year, despite like the lack of out front goals and assists. And it's because of that component that tries to capture the more intangible side of things, where he's an absolute terror who will drive counterattacks, do so much on the dribble. The gravity that he has, where if he has the ball, suddenly you have 5 defenders who immediately are keying on him. You can't quantify that. But at the same time, it really is making a huge impact. And so when San Antonio is playing those rare minutes where he's not on the pitch, they're a demonstrably worse team. And I think the numbers really reflect that in a way that when I come to the end product statistically, like that's reflected in it, because someone like Jose Gallegos is completely amazing.
I 100% agree. I have 2 quick examples. Number 1, Epps and Nathan do not have anywhere near as many goals as they do without Jose Gallegos allowing them to have the space to perform, to do what they need to do. Number 2, the one team that decided we're going to man mark this guy and we're not going to worry about him was that game against New Mexico. And he had, somehow he was either assisted or scored 3 goals. I think he had 3 assists in that match. And that's because they decided, no, we'll put our left back on this guy. It doesn't matter. Assist. So yeah, that's pretty much it right there. We have to double team this guy, which allows somebody to get space. Crap. And that's it. That's why Gallegos he is so damn valuable. And that's exactly what he showed in that in the game this weekend. He created a couple chances. He's got to get back in the swing of things. He's got to get back in. He's got to get warmed up again.
And we would kind of get upset when he was get 3 guys on him, but he wouldn't release the ball.
Yeah.
That's what it goes back to that.
And that's part of his learning. That's a part of the game he needs to learn is, I got 3 guys around me. Who's open? That guy's open. Let me give the ball and quick passes. That's what he needs to work on. But that's kind of what everybody needs to work on at that age. So, yeah. Harry?
And so Robert asked us here, and this goes to John here, wouldn't playing in a weaker division, and he's picking on the Rowdies. Wouldn't that inflate your GAR? I mean, outside of RS, Real Salt Lake last year, the division was stacked last year, and we can kind of, question really if it was that stacked.
I mean, Vegas.
Red Bulls 2, Loudon, his point is that they're playing Red Bulls 2 and Loudon multiple times. So if you're playing, and we're just using the Rowdies as an example, because they were a quality team. They made it all the way to the
final
USL championship game for that. But how does, and this year we don't have to worry about it because it's 14 and 13 in each one. It's a level playing field with the exception of the outer conference matches here. But last year where you had the different divisions, and there were divisions that were much tougher than others. So how does that weigh into your numbers, or does it not? And one thing that I know from you from following you last year is, as this season grows, those numbers will fill in, and like some of the unknowns with San Antonio that we think, hey, this is going to work because player X should fill player X spot here. We'll be able to say, hey, does that come to fruition or does it not? So how does the competition and the variance play into your numbers?
So I think just off the bat, the argument that the West is stronger than or deeper than the East is probably kind of it's kind of a BS thing to begin with. But just in terms of, like, obviously you're going to get a little bit more in terms of the goals and assists you're putting up if you're playing against a Loudon, although, I mean, you could say the same thing about Vegas. But when I take that component that's looking at, like, the on-off, the goal difference that a player is putting up, that's weighted for the team he's on. So if you're someone on Tampa who's outscoring Loudon by 3 every other week or whatever it is, you're not gaining from that because it's your performance relative to the performance of your team. So it sort of is checking for the fact that, yeah, not every single player who's a Rowdy is good just because they're a Rowdy. Like, you've got to be putting in that extra bit of value, or else it's not going to show up in what I'm trying to generate statistically. And when you look at it across, like, the results for teams, there's a reason that Phoenix and Sacramento are my top 2 projected sides right now. Like, they just have more talent. And yeah, Phoenix can, or rather Tampa can run up the numbers against some of the lesser sides out east. But at the end of the day, like, I think it ends up being pretty balanced in my end result.
Royce, any comments on that?
No, I mean, it's going to be one of those things where there's always going to be argument against different stats, but at the same time, there are teams that go by these stats, and this is how they build rosters, and they go by these numbers. Like I said, Corsi's not perfect because it just says, hey, if you get a whole crap ton of shots, then you're probably going to win that game. Well, sometimes you get goalied and you don't. Goalie's on fire and just beat you. WAR. Sometimes you get a dude with, career 100 WAR like Mike Trout or Albert Pujols. They strike out 7 times out of 10. So they don't always tell the perfect story, but all you can do is you can try to. It's the same thing as formations. Formations aren't a perfect science. Formations are just a general idea. They try to give you a general idea of what is going on and what to look for. They don't tell you the specific instructions on somebody. They don't tell you that Didi Traore is going to go all the way up and PC is going to cover for him by coming over, which is going to slightly, make the formation ajar. You don't get those real subtleties, and the same thing with, but hey, you have stories like Moneyball where literally they built the team just based off of analytics purely. They had some of the worst players, in the league at the time. They threw a little bit of money, but they were the perfect players to fit in those spots. And they, won 20 games in a row and went to the playoffs. Like, it's not perfect, but it's about as good. It gives you as good of a picture as you possibly can paint. At the same time, nobody gives championships in the preseason. They don't go, you made the best team. Congratulations, here's your cup. There's a whole season you got to play to figure that out. Injuries happen. Loss of forms happen. Surprises happen. And the big thing that I think SAFC is going to do is they're going to surprise, because oh, you got this guy that came down from MLS. You got Colorado, one of Colorado Springs attackers that didn't score a bunch of goals. There's really not that. The reason why Haji Berry scored so many damn goals last season is because of Beckford and because of Galena. Galena left halfway through the season. Beckford took over. Haji Berry did not
Slow down.
lose a beat. He did not slow down. He kept freaking scoring. Pissed me off, but he kept freaking scoring. And it's because Beckford. And that dude he's so damn fast and he's so damn good. You saw it in that quick video where Loera fed him the ball. He went to the wing, cut it across the Patino, and scored. That is something we're going to see a lot this season, and I'm excited about it. Conclusion after my little outburst, stats aren't perfect, but they give you the best possible picture you possibly can get at that moment.
So John decided to kick the hornet's nest again
No way.
by coming out with power rankings. We'll start from the bottom. He has Vegas, which nobody's shocked.
No big surprise.
RGV, and I think part of the reason why RGV is so low is because they don't have a roster yet. I think they'll jump up once they get in. Because in speaking with Edson, they've got some players that are coming, just haven't cleared medical and all that stuff here. Red Bulls, Atlanta. This part interests me here, where you have Detroit City and Monterey Bay. Your thoughts on the expansions? They're kind of going two different paths. You got Detroit City going with the NISA All-Star team, it seems like, and there is rumors that Billy Forbes is in camp there trialing with them as well.
I will say, shout out to Billy Forbes, one of my favorite players of all time in soccer. He posted on Instagram his car just completely covered in like 6 inches of snow, and he's like, "This weather's not for me, man." Shout out, Billy, man. I hope you're doing all right up there, dude.
So,
oh man,
John, your thoughts on the expansions teams, and Monterey Bay seems to be doing more getting the USL Championship vets path for that here. Kai Green, former San Antonio FC, was transferred to them on a free transfer. So, your thoughts on Monterey Bay and Detroit City?
Yeah, so just starting lower here, I mean, NISA All-Stars really kind of sums it up for what Detroit City has built at this point. There's nothing wrong with that innately. I think you saw some guys like with Oakland last year who came from NISA and not much else experience-wise and did okay. But when you've got 7-8 good NISA players with a handful of like average championship guys, which is basically their roster build at this point, I don't see how they're going to be anything more than kind of bad. Monterey, similar boat where like, yeah, they've got a lot of veterans with championship experience. No one on that team is really flashing as a difference maker to me, but you see them as the biggest jumper in this power ranking, and that's with the additions of, as you mentioned, Kai Green, and then especially Hugh Roberts. Mm-hmm. There's a real scenario where, given the 2 goalkeepers they've got and given those 2 central defenders, where they're going to be really annoying to score on, they're not going to be good. Like, let's be real here. I basically dislike 9/10 of where their roster is at this point. You can envision a scenario where Green and Roberts are just locking teams down. You lump one up to Chris Cortez, who holds it up. Suddenly you get some like quick Walmer Martinez run. It's a 1-0 win for Monterey.
Correct. Which, to be fair, is exactly what OC did last season, and they won the damn championship. And it's exactly what Oakland Roots did last season, and they went to the damn quarterfinals. So,
and I think Monterey is
semifinals.
I think they're a poor man's version of that at this point.
Right.
Like, their midfield is pretty awful, if we're being honest. Like, they're not going to be a playoff threat. They're going to win an annoying game on the road in Phoenix that throws the standings. Like, that's just their game plan at this point.
Which there's definitely something to be said about a team that sucks to play against.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
CONCACAF. That's perfect.
And I'll say this, and I'll say this for Detroit City and for Monterey Bay. You're better off facing them early because they will figure it out. And I know Detroit City's got a hell of a coach that just like with Oakland last year, they started out slow. Mid-year, they brought in some different talent, and then of course they got that late season push for that here. So it wouldn't shock me that with Detroit City and Monterey Bay that they start out a little bit slower. That mid-year, maybe if they're near playoffs or if they're within range of playoffs, they might try to invest a little bit more into the budget. But coming in as an expansion side, to USL Championship, it's not easy. San Antonio struggled to make the playoffs, and this is year 6, and they've only had 2 years where they were comfortably in the playoffs out of that, and they've missed the playoffs a couple of times as well. So it'll be a dogfight. So moving above them, you got Los Dos. Hartford, I was a little surprised to be down low, but I know. Number-wise,
that's just because Ever Guzman retired. That's it. That's the only reason. That's why they're down there. Continue.
Loudoun United, I've heard mentions that they, out of the 2 teams, there's only 4, but out of the 2 teams, that's the one that's possible to get the playoffs on there. Roots, Charleston, Memphis, OC kind of round out, in OC, I'm assuming it's probably a little bit better, being the defending champs, kind of starting out at 15. But they're just that discussion where they don't look sexy on paper and their numbers don't stand, the eye test doesn't stand off as well here, but they got on a roll last year when it mattered, and they got the ball bounced their way a couple of times, and they got the job done. But it's 2022, not 2021, along those lines here. Your thoughts on that kind of next group here? I guess, to me, like OC, Memphis, Charleston, Oakland, kind of, I think those are probably playoff fringe teams, from the East, and OC, I guess, would probably be a fringe team in the West.
Yeah. I do just want to give a shout out to what Loudoun has done. Like, they're not going to be great, but they've added 2 really good goalkeepers, kind of in the same vein as like a Monterey. Pay attention to what Teddy Di Pietro is doing in the midfield. Like, if you're ever by chance watching a Loudoun United game, he's going to be special at some point. I wish I could put Oakland lower. I just don't see them in the playoffs. Wow. They benefit from the fact that I think a lot of the lower half of this league is just not that great. I don't see where the goals are coming from. They've got some good center backs. They're fine up top, I guess. But for me, it's an 8-team race out west, and I'll hit on that in just a second. I do want to shout out what Memphis has done. It feels disrespectful to have them 16th, frankly, just because some of the League One players they picked up are really impressive. I would die on the hill that Laurent Kessiedou is one of the better number 10s in the division. They're a striker away and a little bit of depth away from.
Huh. So you're saying they're a Kyle Murphy away from being a good. Wonder where.
That's about right.
Interesting.
That's a number 8 spot there.
OC, though, on the topic of that team, I just think that Chaplow style, defense first, grind it out, is really hard to play over the course of 32 weeks in the regular season. And when you think about what their offense was, a lot of long balls into Ronaldo Damas, which is still there, but it was a lot of Eric Calvillo driving play through the middle of the pitch.
He's in El Paso now, right?
Exactly. They've replaced him with Kevin Partida, who's good, but plays a different role and doesn't progress the ball in a similar way. And they brought in, I think, 2 or 3 number 6, number 8, more defensive-minded kind of players. Eric Torres is the other thing as well. He scored like 2 goals in 4 years. I tend to kind of glorify him mentally as like the Kubo who came into MLS going on a decade ago and really tore things up. It seems like he almost has his eye on youth coaching more than playing at this point from things I've heard. So how do you balance that with what Damas is doing? Because they went with 2 strikers at a certain point last year, and it was a bit of a mess. who's progressing the ball in the middle? What are you doing with that defense, given that Rob Kiernan is gone and you're really relying on Kobe Henry to make that step up, which I think he can do, but it's a big burden on such a young player. So, like, there's a real blueprint for this team to get into the playoffs and make another run again. But at the same time, there's just a lot of question marks for me when I'm considering what Orange County has done.
And I think Robert makes a great point. OC was a lot of let's play for PK's play style, which works in the postseason, but unfortunately during the regular season, you walk away with 1 point, not 3 points. So I could see them being in a lot of close games and tie games, which that could impact them on how far they get up. So we're going to go to the East next, kind of on the playoffs here. So you have Tampa at number 1. You have Louisville City at number 2, ranking out of the East. Pittsburgh at number 3. The Miami FC at number 4. Birmingham, the Legion at, and then FC Tulsa. And then rounding out for the playoffs, because I believe 7 only make it, right? Because the first place gets a bye. Indy 11, and I know in this article here you mentioned that you're starting to come around on Indy. You got them just ahead of Memphis here. So, to me, is it the Rowdies that as the clear number 1, or Louisville and Pittsburgh kind of in their neighborhood, or kind of how close is the top?
That is sort of the question I'm pondering. I think that Louisville is pretty tight with them at this point. I kind of see it, and if you're seeing the power rankings right now, like across the division as a whole, it's kind of a pretty delineated top 4. Tampa is still really strong. Like, you have to question with Forrest Lasso and Evan Loro out, how are they going to transition? But I think they've replaced them well. You got Timmy Malin, a Loudon product, but one who was really impressive and who the numbers loved. They brought in Cochran in goal, who was good in OKC. Some of the peripheral additions, like your Jake Aramans, your Jake LaCavas, just add another layer of depth in the midfield. And they give you a little bit more tactical flexibility where suddenly Leo Fernandez can move up top. So Tampa's going to be great. Louisville added some real good talent this offseason on the sly, and they sort of have a minor youth movement going on where some of the older players, think Hopano, Alexis Swahi, were out the door. You brought in Musha Galusa and Wilson Harris and Amadou Dia from Sporting Kansas City. It's just this extra level of like dynamism, electricity. It's going to be a slightly new look Louisville team, but the way they're doing it is smart. Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. Bob Lilly always is going to have a good playoff team. Dane Kelly is the one to watch there, like the all-time division leader in goals. He's fantastic. I have a little bit of question about their defense and their fullbacks. Jordan Dover didn't resign, who has been a stalwart for that team, but they're going to be good again. Miami, I go back and forth on. They're very strong, but they
brought in a lot of talent this year. It's almost like they hit the resetting button and said, hey, I'm Roberto Silva. I got a checkbook here. Let's write it out.
They kind of panicked. Yeah, I thought they had a good squad last season. They're just missing a couple pieces. They kind of, and it was mainly when they went up against teams like Tampa Bay where those differences really showed, where they're just that one attacking piece, that one little, that one guy who could play that through ball. That's all they were missing, and then they did a complete rebuild.
Right. So, it's like you brought in Segbers and Kyle Murphy and Romeo Parks, but Francois and Billy Forbes and Ariel Martinez are at the door. Like, yes, this new set of players is really good, but it might be a lateral move at the end of the day where you've got the spine coming back, but I don't know. They're going to be good again, but I don't know if they're the line where I'm kind of doubting that there's title contention in the mix.
So then my next one, and this, I'm sure Kaler's gonna, if he hasn't already reached out to you, probably like, hey, what the hell's going on? The Legion. I won't lie to you. I thought they've had a pretty successful offseason. I thought they would be higher up there. I would probably rate them above Pittsburgh, and I know that seems kind of odd, but I do like what they brought back and what they brought in. But your thoughts on them being what, fifth?
Yes, yeah.
Fifth in the East.
And I will say, like, when I'm mapping out the East, there's almost like a top 5, and then Tulsa, and then everybody else.
Right.
But we'll get to Tulsa in a minute. Birmingham for me it's just that striker spot. I know, yeah, you mentioned Kaler. He's high on what Eddie Horvat is going to be doing. He's a player I know nothing about. And when you're losing a Nico Brett, that's a big deal because Brett was amazing. And yeah, Marlon and Enzo Martinez are fantastic creators who are going to slot into this midfield so easily and really be forces. And this team, underratedly so, was maybe one of the best defenses across the league last year. But it's just that goal scoring. Like, you got to put it in the back of the net at the end of the day. And if they can prove that in the first couple weeks, they shoot up the standings for me. But it's just like that prove it aspect where I'm wanting a little bit more.
I'm also interested with them moving stadiums to what, Legion Field, I think, or Legion Stadium. It's a larger stadium. I know they're going to have more fans there, but will it feel like that? Will it give them a home field advantage? Because I know, when people come to Toyota Field here in San Antonio, there is a home field advantage compared to if you go to Vegas or one of the two teams, or where you don't necessarily have that same interactions with the fans here. So sure. Birmingham's one of the teams that I think could shoot up fairly quickly, especially if they get off to a hot start along those lines. Tulsa, they were the Jekyll and Hyde team last year. Do you predict them to be the same Jekyll and Hyde team where one week they'll win 4-0 and the next week they'll lose 5-0?
I think the big problem for them last season came in 2 areas, and it was the defense down the middle and the fact that Joaquin Rivas and Jorge Luis Corrales were often missing on international duty. So you bring in Gabriel Torres to fill in that left back spot, and in a pinch, that left wing spot. He was fantastic in Hartford. I think he'll really address what that team missed creatively. And then they brought in Rodriguez, who is a Salvadoran international center back. Their center backs, frankly, were terrible last season. One of the sloppier sides in the league, and it had the knock-on effect of making their goalkeeping statistics look bad. It threw off things in the central midfield, which they've also added there defensively with Petar Kuic from Sporting Kansas City system again. So I think they've added smartly, and their roster is built in a way that really can impress if they're able to engage those attacking players. For me, they're lacking a striker still, and I do have slight questions about the defense despite some of the changes. So for me, they're the final team that is pretty safely a playoff lock in the East. But at the same time, I'm kind of struggling to see the upside beyond a 6th or 5th place finish.
And then the last team, Indy 11 here, which I have a soft spot for. Cue the smoke. Like I said here, shout out to you guys. At the 7th spot, you mentioned that you're kind of warming up. What's kind of giving you some more love for Indy 11 compared to Memphis and Charleston?
Yeah, so being born and raised and living there for the first 18 years of my life is probably the first thing that makes me biased towards them. But love Mark Lowry. The addition of Stefano Pino is going to be a big deal just because this team lacked in forwards. And I'm increasingly buying into the regression to the mean, where last year was a bit of a shit show with Martin Rennie exiting and getting really stale. And when you have names like Anaozi, Nabil Hackshaw, Carl Wimet, I think that they are more talented than they evidenced last season. And I think they're going to come back a little bit. Do I think this team is maybe going to struggle to adjust to the Lowry system and doesn't match it perfectly? Do I think that they brought in way too many Real Monarchs players? Yes, on both ends. But they just have a little bit more spark, and I give them the Lowry boost over the two other decent sides there for that final spot.
So moving out west, we'll do the top three because I think there's three clear favorites. Based on yours here, you got Sac Republic, you got Phoenix, and you got Colorado Springs. I think you're probably, just in following you, I think those are the three clear, and then there's probably a break to, and you have fourth as El Paso. To me, I'm not as high on Sac Republic just because they have a lot more to go because they were a non-playoff team. They were underperforming team last year. They've brought in some quality players, but they've still got to make that jump. Phoenix is Phoenix, and like I said here, I thought Colorado Springs has done a decent job at shoring up their defense. Now there's still some other holes in there. But your thoughts on the top three out west?
Yeah, Sacramento for me, I just completely adore that midfield that they've put together. LaGrassa is a proven quantity, even basically at the MLS level. I think Nick Ross was super impressive with what he did in El Paso. Zico Lewis is one of the best creators in the league coming over from the Battery. Rodrigo Lopez coming back is a huge deal. He gives you so much in that box-to-box role, even if he's getting a little bit up there age-wise. Douglas Martinez at striker. I mean, he was a striker for a championship team with that Real Monarchs title winner. Do they have the center back position locked down with like a Hayden Sargis out the door? And I've heard very good things about what Desmond, who they've added over from Europe, from the British Isles, is going to be doing. And I kind of trust what they've done with like Jack Gurr and Ferry Sosa at right back. There's some soft question marks there, and I do think they're lacking forward depth. But man, the wingers and the midfielders that they've got in the middle, this is a team that can keep the ball and not give it up and is going to be dictating a lot of games. You mentioned Phoenix is Phoenix, and I don't think there's really a better way to sum that up. Talk about Marcus Epps too. Like if there's going to be someone who can approximate, if not the exact like goal scoring dominance of Solomon Asante, I think he can put up a decent impact to kind of approximate what that was. And then talked about Colorado Springs. I've got, again, some questions in the midfield for them, but Haji Berry is ridiculous. Galena coming back is a really big deal. And then they're going to be flanking that with like Elvis Mo, Carlton Belmar. In defense, the center backs are both good. I was watching some tape back today, in fact, of Ockford and Hodge, who I think are a really underrated pair. Macaulay King and Malik Johnson at the fullback spots, talk about two really great players. And then one of the most underrated additions in the whole offseason has to be Jeff Caldwell in goal for that side.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against Sean Melvin, who was completely fine, but Caldwell was a finalist for goalkeeper of the year with Hartford, a statistical darling at the same time. Like the glow up you're getting from fine goalkeeping to the elite level that Caldwell gives you, it's going to be big for a Colorado Springs side that is so attacking focused and tends to give up big chances as a result. And you have someone who's going to stand on his head and make those stops. So I believe in the vision for how they build this offseason.
So the next four, and I know you have them in your order here, but to me, you could probably flip these in any way, and I'm not sure you would be wrong. You got El Paso at 4, New Mexico 5, San Antonio 6, San Diego at 7, and we already kind of discussed OCS, Orange County, right outside there. But El Paso coaching changes kind of revamped the roster a little bit, just because you're going to be changing styles. New Mexico brought in a lot more talent. They kept some of what their core from last year. San Diego's reloaded as well. San Antonio, I think, has had quite a bit of changeover, which we discussed earlier. But these bottom four, as far as playoffs, teams 4 through 7, like I said here, I think it's going to be a fun season to watch to see how these four evolve. I will say I'm not as high on El Paso. I'm probably a little bit higher on San Diego if I was to kind of flip them here, taking away the San Antonio aspect of it here. But like I said here, that's equivalent about minor stuff here for me.
Yeah, on El Paso, I'm kind of just buying into the PR that I'm getting, like hearing John Hutchinson and hearing the takes I'm getting from like the Seriously Loco crew, where you hear about like this high pressing, keep the ball high up the pitch style. At the same time, like bringing in Eric Calvillo, bringing in Cristiano Francois, kind of a big deal. I mentioned it in the piece, but I don't trust their center back spot entirely. Well, I do like Evan Newton in goal. I think their fullback on the right side is a pretty clear downgrade, moving from Macaulay King to Brockbank from the English lower leagues. That said, like I believe in what they're going to be doing stylistically. Just looking at it, I probably do have them too high, if we're being honest, but they're going to be a really good playoff side at the end of the day. And then just advancing down here, you pretty much hit all the beats on New Mexico. I should eat crow because I had them winning the Mountain last season. Like I was very high on that roster, and I think
how did that turn out?
Not great.
You weren't the only one, though. I won't lie to you. A lot of people
True.
had New Mexico. They couldn't score, though.
Yep.
And I don't know if they've addressed it 100%, but I do think they have improved it mightily from last year, which was their big issue.
Yeah, well, I was praising Nico Brett a ton earlier, right, in the context of Birmingham, and say hello to the new starting striker for United there. I think that Jerome Kieswetter is not going to be any good in terms of an addition, just because he really hasn't returned anything for goals in a couple of seasons at this point. But there's a scenario where he ends up banging in double digits just because he has that talent. And I think that just going back to the Brett idea, and again, I've got some stuff coming out this week about Chris Wean's potential impact just playing off of a Brett-like striker. I think he's going to have a huge year. What they brought in the middle with Justin Portillo is going to be pretty underrated. He gets box to box. I have weirdly invoked the 2019 Real Monarchs twice now, but he was big in that side. Just so I think they're going to be solid. Again, they just feel like a solid playoff team, a step above like that OC line for me at this point. San Antonio is the one where in the last 2 weeks, with those three additions in terms of Garcia, Deshane Beckford, and Katukumane, they jumped from a team that I had on the outside looking in to one that feels like they've got a real high upside at this point. I couldn't rate Fabian Garcia any higher as a central defender. And I think that the trio you have now, and I didn't realize that Kamiri was probably going to be coming back, that's a murderer's row of like 4 center backs that you can rotate in and out with those 3 keepers and some really good fullback play. You've got PC restored to that kind of natural central position that I prefer him in and have preferred him in since like his Fort Lauderdale striker days. Gosh, this team is going to be hard to score on. And then you think about the Marcina style with that counterattack, trying to get out on the break. Who is a better fit for that than the pace of Katukumane and Deshane Beckford? And maybe they're not both starting at the same time, but even you throw the speed, the guile of one of them with your Patino, with Elliot Collier, who mentally and visually comes off as a sort of tank, but is a really talented dribbler, really good at his feet. Like every time I talk about San Antonio FC, I tend to just like bump them up mentally and get this urge to like throw them up where I have El Paso right now, because I'm really starting to buy into what they've done this offseason, even if it took me a minute to get there. And so I'll shut up about that because I'm glowing at this point.
To be fair, yeah, no, I was gonna say to be fair, I've kind of had a similar like, what are we doing? Okay, we brought back some players. Okay, how are we gonna upgrade? And El Paso, I think El Paso is definitely overrated. We'll see how they play, but I think them losing Mark Lowry is going to end up being the story of their offseason, and the story of their 2022 season is, wow, that guy was really important here, and we really miss him. I think that's how El Paso is going to feel for sure, and that's why I think Indy is very underrated, and I think they'll be in the top 4 this upcoming season because of the talents of Mark Lowry. That dude, the tactic, the
How he's not in
instruction.
MLS, I don't understand.
I don't get it either. How he completely nullified any attack that SAFC could have put up in the first 3 matches that we played against them last season. I just watched it with, damn, we just got nullified. Everybody did. It was amazing. And to include upon that, it was either he had Diego Luna coming back and he had Lucho Soniak coming back, to where there was supposed to be somebody that was on one of them. They couldn't do that. So one of them was open at all times, and they just dominated the first 2 or 3 matches against us. And Marcina finally had a game plan that was successful against them. And I'm pretty confident that Oakland Roots were watching that, because that's exactly how they beat El Paso, was doing the exact same thing as SAFC did, which was everybody back here, let all their attack just kind of fizzle out, and then we'll go counter on them. That was pretty much it. But we'll see how El Paso does. Like I said, I think you have them. You have them quite a bit too high. SAFC, I think, goes up a bit. New Mexico also goes up a bit. They've really done a lot. I do agree with that. I think the best team in this entire division, though, I think regular season wise, I think it is going to be Colorado Springs. They've never been a good playoff team, though, so I don't see them going far in the playoffs, but we'll see how that turns out.
Any comments that you have, Rafa?
I was going to ask John, like, what is the one missing ingredient for SAFC to get into the top 3? To really, like, what can we, SAFC do and be a real threat to in the Western Conference and going to the final?
I think it is the presence of one of those like box to box, really ball carrying midfielders, where PC in a perfect world could be filling that role. But I don't know if I trust his legs at this point. And I think I want someone who has a little bit more vision and dribbling skill. And they've got a little bit more like a physicality and a bite to their game than Jose Gallegos, say. Like, I talk about Eric Cavilla constantly, but he's the mold of player where you can stick him in that kind of like Nathan or now Loera role, but they're able to come deeper and help and build up. Or they can come in with a late run into the box and just blow you up when you're in the final third. That kind of do everything central midfielder. And I think you could say that about 99% of teams in this league. But that would be the one thing where, like, whoa, that would set this San Antonio side apart.
And I think a big replacement for Nathan this season is going to be David Loera, who came over from Orlando City.
Right.
I think that's who's going to fill in that spot this season. And I think that's going to be another one of those diamonds in the rough that SAFC just kind of signed, like okay, never really heard of this guy, but then just going to explode on the scene, and he's going to fill that spot. And in the preseason, that's exactly where he's been. He's been in that. He's wearing the 10 shirt, but SAFC's never really had a 10. We've had a guy that comes back that will drop back. He'll help out in the press, but he connects the forwards with the central midfielders, and I think that's what he's going to take. At the same time, I think another X factor player that SAFC could sign if they decided to, who's apparently still a free agent for some reason, and I don't know if it's retirement or what's going to happen, but isn't Solomon Asante still a free agent for no reason? Yeah. So I don't know if he's waiting on an MLS contract he think is coming, or
no.
I think it's
rumor was that he was going overseas.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Is there one player out there that we can bring in?
There you go. I think that's what I was getting to.
Is there one that that maybe if we sign him, that's the missing piece to the puzzle?
Weston McKennie.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's this guy Lionel Messi. I don't know if you. Boy,
I'll do some research. Let me look him up.
Yeah, Yeah.
I think that because this is MLS starts next week, and I know as we kind of discussed, San Antonio's got really quiet on player announcements. I'm going to be interested to see, because usually San Antonio gets 3-4 MLS loanees.
Mhm. Either loanees or guys that did not get the contract they wanted, which I honestly think, in my heart of hearts, I think that Jasser Kamiri was waiting to see if an MLS team were to come calling. I don't think he ever got that call, or the call that he got was insulting. And SAFC said, same thing you had last season. Let's go, baby. And I think that's why he's coming back. So
there's still a lot of quality guys out there, like Sam Gleadle is still out there that will find a home.
You were saying El Paso has obviously downgraded in right backs. There's your damn right back right there. Get Gleadle out there.
Although Sam, don't go there, please.
That's correct. That's correct. Sam, go anywhere but there.
Yes, sir.
Go east.
Yeah.
Go east, my friend.
Correct. That's correct. That's correct.
But like I said here, but him, Kamiri, all the fringe, MLS, bottom half of the rosters, like I said. So I think this will be an interesting week to kind of see, or these next 2 weeks, I'll say, will be an interesting week, because I do know just on how the game is played. There are discussions saying, okay, hey, go try out with Team X. If you don't make it here, you've got a spot here along those lines here. So to me, and this doesn't just go for San Antonio. This goes for, the rest of USL Championship teams. Is that there will be some interesting last minute additions that you'll be like, what? He's here? How did that happen? So
rumor has it that Houston Dynamo is talking to Ache and is going to sign him from Atletico Madrid, which if he's willing to go to the Dynamo, Tim Holt might as well get on the phone and be like, dude, don't waste your time. Just come down I-10.
And get Gio dos Santos.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, then he'll just choke everybody in the championship and get away with it. It'll be fun.
Start his career again.
So final thoughts here, because we said, hey, we were splitting up the shows to get shorter. Now we do have a special guest.
Whoops.
Here, so we're not making that happen here. But
this is the story of every podcast, right?
Well, it's a great conversation, and especially we wanted to highlight your work, because like I said here, you do awesome work, and I know that some of the communication from San Antonio can be a little bit harsh at times here, but I think that probably comes from all fan bases that have an active fan base, I guess I should say.
Passion, yeah.
RGV doesn't say a lot, but that's a whole
shots
separate
fired.
discussion.
Shots fired.
We saw how well it was for the Bold that they had to relocate. So,
buddy, and the Energy. I mean, shout out to the Energy and all their fans, which they did have quite a few fans. That's a crappy situation there. So, shout out to y'all.
And I'll be speaking about the Energy in my final thought here.
Mm-hmm.
But John, your final thoughts. If you want to plug your website, what you anything that you want to plug, any topics that you would like our thoughts on.
Nothing off the top of my head. Honestly, I do just want to say, I love the show. I listen to the feed when it comes out on the Spotify version of it. You guys do great work.
Thank you.
You're clearly passionate, and I think I love I've been a fan of what's been going on in San Antonio since the NASL days. I grew up watching Indy 11 play. Really, that was my introduction into soccer in this country.
Team Honda versus Team Toyota.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The Hankinson connection. But so I've always respected what's gone on here from afar. So I just love what you guys do to support that. And in terms of my stuff, just follow at USL Tactics on Twitter. Whatever you need will end up on there at some point, because I tweet way too much. So
same.
And you can also catch John on the USL show Tuesday nights.
You're better than I am at this. Yeah. USL.
Well, that's the reason why I'm in the host seat here.
I need to help us do to his polling for the high school teams. Who's really the best team in San Antonio?
Yeah, that's controversy. That's when we really hear it. Yeah, you think you hear it from us?
Or who's
Oh,
gonna win
Bubba.
the
Oh,
championship?
Bubba.
They have someone that's the supposed number one source that knows everything, but
Yeah.
I trust John with his stats.
Yeah, our DMs are open and they are fiery sometimes. Yeah. Well, yeah, all high school. It's high school football and both iterations of high school football intense in this state, especially in this region. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. But
Rafa,
thanks,
we'll
John.
go with you,
Obviously.
Royce. Your final thoughts?
Just thank you, John. I didn't know anybody was going that in depth on USL Championship Soccer and everything, and I was really excited a few years ago when I started following you, and it's cool to finally meet you and to talk to you, man. I love your work, man. It's great, and it's needed for sure, and it's definitely appreciated. So that's my final thought. That's it.
I just keep waiting for some MLS team to grab them because
Yeah,
they tend to grab the best of USL's championship. So,
for real.
which for you as a career and job, kudos to you if that ever happens, but it'll suck for us.
My dirty secret is that I know nothing about MLS. Basically,
but you could learn very quickly.
Yeah, I guess that's right. But I'm pretty great. Like when it comes to I know the championship. I've got a bit of League One, and I'm kind of brain dead with everything else at this point.
Rafa, your final thoughts?
I just want to thank John for coming on. Learned a lot from him, and then also final thought. Just want to wish a happy birthday to my Aunt Elda in Modesto, California. So happy birthday to her, and looking forward for Wednesday's show for the Power 15.
Power 15 and Taps bracketology. I gotta,
You have to have John on bracketology to analyze who's gonna win the state title, the 3-state title.
We call that a tease in the business. Yeah, there you go.
So my final thought, there's two of them here. Both show related. Well, number one, thank you to John and Royce and Rafa. This week here, we've upgraded to where we have, not only did SAFC get a new website, but so did we, satxsoccer.net. You'll be able to catch all of our episodes. You can catch the YouTube episodes. There'll be articles at some point if any of us want to write articles along those lines here. I need to make sure I get with Royce and Rafa to update their About Us for that here, along those lines here. And Royce will not be here next week because he has a more important place to be for that here. So Royce may not be on the show next week. We may or may not have a show next Sunday. But on March 7th, March 6th, we're going to have Mr. Man Bun, Cody Lorenzi from, I told him I was going to call him.
I will say real quick, we're bringing on Corey Lorenzi, who's now, I believe he's an agent.
He's an agent. So,
we will talk about that. It'll be like the Steve Dangle Podcast Network's Agent Provocateur, where they always interview. I don't know if y'all are hockey podcast fans, but they always have a different agent on, and they give you the behind the scenes of, I got a drink with that guy, and that's how that deal's made. It's amazing. So hopefully we get some fun stories. But real quick, I won't be on next week because my mom turned 60, and I'll be with her for her birthday. Yay! Huzzah.
So, but with Cody, we're going to go over obviously his career with Oklahoma City. He was a Puerto Rico national team member for them. Kind of talk maybe briefly about that. But obviously he's been on the opposing side here at Toyota Field. So to kind of get that interaction of what's it like to come in as a goalkeeper here. And then to me, the more important is going to be that transition from where he was as a player to now, because we always see players, it seems like from USL go more into the coaching ranks here, but to see about this as a different avenue for players to go through to where, maybe on the business side or on the player side of that here. And I would also like to touch base, on how important it is for the USL Players Association to get that collective bargaining deal. Just to kind of reinforce, because I know he's a huge voice for USL players, and it was, along, and I'm sure there'll be a discussion, between which beard was better, his or Matt's, because both of them can grow the beard, unlike me. Rafa used to be able to grow the beard till he had to get all prim and proper, but
that COVID
John's
beard
rocking
going.
a pretty solid one as well, though. So
John,
Yeah, got a little small pen.
my ancestors, not so much. Yeah, you guys are fine. Mine, yeah.
yeah, mine's thin, gray, and it's a whole bunch of patch, but
I got that sick neck beard, bro.
so, but we'll have a discussion of beards in 2 weeks, most likely here.
Please
but, do want to thank John. Like I said, a huge thank you. Hopefully, we'll have you on later on in the year, at the end of the year, just to kind of recap, say, hey, what went right, what went wrong for San Antonio FC for that here in just USL in general. Rafa, Royce, we thank you for coming up tonight, and especially you, Royce, where you came from the beach and walked in the door.
Quite literally, I need a shower.
much.
I smell.
And he had everything hooked up too. That was the other amazing part here. I was like, oh,
Yes,
he's gonna
sir.
come on, and he's still gonna have to do it here. But what's life without goals? We're out of here. Hope everybody has a great 2 weeks here, possibly.